Rays fans have flipped their perspective in the last 18 years.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are Kevin and Ulises.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who've been podcasting about the Tampa Bay Rays since 2019.
Later on in today's mailbag show, we discuss whether the Rays will rely on deeper outings for their starters in 2026. In a few minutes, we'll look at why former Rays shortstop Jose Caballero is finding success in New York. But to start, how the Rays franchise has changed and altered since Carlos Pena hit 46 homers in a single season in 2007.
And we're going to talk about all of that thanks to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. This franchise has come a long, long way from that home run chase in 2007, Kevin.
It has indeed. And there was a question we got, or a comment we got from Elephant 2024 on the YouTubes when Carlos Pena hit 46 home runs. That was back in 2007, 1 year before the Devil Rays became the Rays and made their worst to first run from the division title to the World Series. And boy, oh boy, Ulises, have things changed since then. And frankly, if you just compare the Rays and their payroll and their market, all that they've accomplished since 2007 or 2008, if you want to look at it that way, it's pretty enviable compared to probably a vast majority of the major league franchises out there.
100%. I mean, you've from 2008, you've got division titles, you've got a couple AL pennants, a couple World Series, obviously, in 08 and 2020, Cy Youngs. You've got batting title. You got home run derby runner-ups, if we're counting that.
Yes.
Gold gloves, a platinum glove. It's pretty crazy to think about where we are and where we've come from as Rays fans. And I want to say that that's how the perspective has flipped in 18 years. Before, it was just cool. We wish that we could win 90-something games, but it was just cool to have a home run chase that Carlos Pena was giving us in 2007. Now, I'm sorry, but the Rays fandom is not happy about just getting to a wild card and then getting booted off. In fact, I think the most Rays fans are pretty darn upset that they got to see back-to-back disappointing seasons of having a losing record. I know that there's a section of fans that will forever just clap everything and everything is fine. For them, I give them the forever it's fine dog in the fiery room meme to them. Don't want to be in a room with them if it's on fire. But I think most Rays fans now, this success is now changing the expectation. And it's not just us saying it in a partial of the section of fans, but we have actually seen these words come out of both Kevin Cash and Eric Neander saying, we don't just want to get to a wild card. The people at the helm have said this. We don't just want to go to a wild card. We are upset about not going farther, not being who we are, not getting farther into the playoffs. And I feel like that's a really positive thing for this Rays franchise's fandom to kind of look back and see, yes, 2024 and 2025 have been disappointments, but look how far we've come from that home run chase in 07 that now we expect not only a winning record, not only getting into the playoffs, but going deep into the playoffs.
The bar has been raised, which is a good thing to talk about. I mean, back in the old days of the Devil Rays, it was like, hey, can we crack 70 wins? Can we crack 75 wins? And now if you go under 500 or miss the playoffs, it's looked at as a major disappointment. And that's what you hope for when you've built a good core and a good front office and a good coaching staff. Now, I think the time is you've got two most likely consecutive seasons, definitely two consecutive seasons of not making the playoffs. And on top of that, you have a new ownership group that probably has their own benchmarks and expectations. And that might lend some additional pressure on Kevin Cash and Eric Neander as to, hey, we're rolling in 2026. We'll be back to the drop. We're riding high on Junior Caminero and some of the other young players. We're looking to win 90 plus games. We're looking to make the wild card. I think the division is a little bit of a steeper slope based on what the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees have built this year and in the offseason and so forth. But then again, it's also on this new ownership group to give the front office and the coaching staff and the players on the field the tools to be successful. You can't just stay status quo and expect a 90-win season. You're going to have to make some sort of moves. I wouldn't say a complete overhaul, but you need to boost up and buttress this roster in some way, shape, or form. And that's what should bring some excitement, a new era of Rays ownership. Stu Sternberg left his mark for better or worse, and you got to give credit to Stu Sternberg for bringing in the minds and the brains of getting this franchise to a winner. But now, can this next ownership group, there he is on the YouTube channel, nice image of the eyes of Stu Sternberg there. Can this new ownership group do what Stu couldn't do and bring an actual World Series title to Tampa Bay? That's, the $1 million or $1 billion question, if you want to look at it. And what I'll be curious about, just based on what you said, what the Rays have done over the last 18 years, can they replicate that or succeed that 18 years from now? When we push forward to, I don't know, what would it be, 2042, give or take? Do the Rays rack up as many accolades during that time frame as they've done over the past 18 years? I guess we're also missing an MVP. If we could get an MVP Toronto stat, that would be nice as well.
Yeah, MVP votes for Brendan Lau are nice, but it would be nice to actually hold that trophy. I'll tell you, the Rays front office has a very difficult job this offseason because we've seen 2025 flashes of brilliance, and not every team is going to give you flashes of brilliance. This team gave you that. So then that tells you there's something there. There's in this group something that can work together. So it can't be just let's dismantle it and burn it to the ground. There are pieces there we know that are good and that can work together. So then where are the holes? What can you plug in? That's a very difficult job in of itself, but we've got two bigger factors here that give the Rays front office a very difficult job. They've got two pressures from two sides. Number one, the fandom. Like we just said, the perspective has changed. Every fan should expect better results in 2026. That's where we are. You've led us here. Now this is where the standard is. We want more. We cannot abide by two back-to-back losing seasons. We can't. Right. We just do not do that in Tampa Bay. Number two, you mentioned the new ownership. I know we all want to think, rose-colored lenses, and these guys are going to be just foot to the pedal, and they're going to just money everywhere. I'm trying to be real conservative here. I think this ownership, at least in the beginning, will want to curb expenses. Why? There's a stadium that needs to be built too. So I think they're going to curb the expenses at the onset. And if you're already yelling at me through the screen, first, thank you for watching. Number two, thank you for hitting that like button. Number three, thank you for subscribing and commenting if you haven't yet. But thank you for yelling at me, because now I'm going to answer your yells by saying, what's more likely to happen? The new ownership comes in and signs Kyle Tucker, hometown man, for a 10-year, $300 million contract, which we all would really, really enjoy. Or is it more likely that the new ownership will say, let's try Louis Robert Jr., for a bounce back season for a hefty $5 million. Where do you see this new, like, what's more likely to happen? We all want Kyle Tucker, people. That is easy choice here. I'm saying what's more likely to happen. And I just feel like if I'm just trying to be real conservative here, they're going Robert Jr., who is hitting 223, a 297 on base, a 364 slug with a 661 OPS, 14 home runs in 110 games. That seems more likely to happen than a Kyle Tucker signing.
It's the former for sure, or the latter. Sorry, I'm getting my formers and ladders mixed up. It's not Kyle Tucker. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe in an alternate universe, if the Rays were indeed a player away from competing for a division title, I guess maybe you still have the whole Wander Franco situation lingering, in other situations lingering as well. You got to pay for a new ballpark at some point. But the Rays at this point aren't just a player away. I mean, they need to find a way to win another 10 or 12 games, I would think, next season to make the playoffs or squeak in.
And the thing is, the stadium. The stadium is just too big of a thing to just say $300-400 million that a Kyle Tucker guy could possibly want. So, speaking of changes in perspective, the swap from Caballero to Walls wasn't as costly as you guys might think. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. Isn't that nice? And you and I make decisions every day. Kevin does as well. But on PrizePicks, being right means cashing. And wouldn't it be nice to be right and get some green Skittles back? Well, PrizePicks does exactly that. It's quick, easy, and everybody's favorite way to follow along with football. So today, download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So again, download the PrizePicks app, use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Thank you for joining us on Locked On Rays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I believe we have a second question for this mailbag episode. Kevin, let us know what it is.
We do indeed, and that is from the real Stu Weinstock, and there's a great picture of him in the top left corner. If you're watching on the YouTubes, looks like he could be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Successful gentleman, I will say. But he says, I think Ulises and Kevin are missing the bigger picture, though I enjoy their podcast. Jose Caballero should have been locked in as the everyday shortstop from day one. He brings an energy and flair that changes the game. Sure, Taylor Walls is strong defensively, but Jose isn't far behind in the field and adds a knack for the dramatic that Walls doesn't. If Caballero had been starting 6 days a week at shortstop, I don't believe this team would be stuck in the funk that we're in right now.
The rules, Stu in stock. Thank you so much for that comment, for all your comments, for tuning in, for the likes and the subscription, hopefully. Thank you for all of that. Okay, a lot to tackle. First, I agree that Jose Caballero brings an energy and flair that changes the game. Agreed on that point.
Yeah.
I also agree that Taylor Walls is strong defensively. I do think that. But I think we go a little bit divergent when you say I don't believe this team would be stuck in the funk we're in right now if Caballero had been starting 6 days a week at shortstop. No way. Because I have the numbers right here. Very similar, guys, between Walls and Caballero. I know it sounds crazy, but you're talking a slash line of 226, 327, 311 for Caballero. And then you're talking a slash line of 220, 280, 319 for Walls. It's an 83 WRC plus, 65 WRC plus for Walls. So there definitely Caballero takes that. The BSR, of course, Caballero takes that. Defensively speaking, we know who Walls is, and he's going to take that. But really, it wasn't that drastic of a difference, Kevin. I mean,
Right.
even when you look at strikeout rate, Walls struck out at a 22.1% clip this season. Cabby was almost at 30%. So I understand. I do believe that overall, Caballero is going to give you more of a he's going to give you a better aesthetically not going to get angry type of fandom out of you than Walls is. But production on the field, I mean, the numbers are there. We're not making them up. The numbers are there, and they're not that dissimilar from each other.
Yeah, I would say a couple things on this. One, I think part of Caballero's value is not just sticking him at shortstop and, all right, it's yours, kid. His value is in his versatility, in being able to play third base, second, short, corner outfield, whatever it may be. I think we're a little bit jaded because he is having so much success in a Yankees uniform right now. That is, it really is kind of unbelievable to see the stretch that he's been on in New York. And there's reports and rumors out there that he could frankly steal the job from Anthony Volpe. I believe Volpe had a cortisone shot and that set him back, and he's had some other issues as well, as we know, especially with the errors and so forth. But I think that, look, if Jose Caballero wasn't traded on July 31st for Everson Pereira and a player to be named later, I find it hard to believe that this team would be 77 and 73 instead of 73 and 77. I just feel like Caballero wasn't making all that much of a difference, and the Rays didn't think so either because they traded him. Like, I think that Caballero is having more success in New York for a couple reasons. One of those is he's not living in Wander's shadow. I think that kind of hurt Caballero a little bit, was because he was the guy that was acquired to replace Wander because Wander was dealing with his off the field issues. And I feel like the Yankees are a team where Caballero can be hidden in the lineup and get opportunities to get hits and make an impact because you have a guy named Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and Cody Bellinger, and the list goes on and on. So he's got a little bit more protection and kind of can be a sneaky hitter in that respect. And he's part of a winning ball club right now. And I think that can endear a little bit more momentum for a player. And, just a small sample size. Maybe he's just on a crazy 30, 40 game stretch and he'll come back down to earth. But I didn't see his development path of being what he's doing in New York in a Tampa Bay Rays uniform. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah, by the way, in New York, he's slashing 262, 352, 475 slug. I mean, that is just impressive. Over an 800 OPS. That's really cool for Caballero. Yeah. Not cool for us because he has to do it in pinstripes. But I think you nailed it on why he might be getting that success. I hadn't even thought about the Wander thing, but I do agree with you 100% on the other two. Number one, I think in a New York Yankee lineup, he knows he doesn't have to do too much. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we like to make Yandy and Brendan Lau and Junior Caminero like, okay, yeah, those are our boys, but they're not Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Cody Bellinger has an MVP. And I know he's not the same one from the past, but Cody Bellinger has an MVP. Guess who also has an MVP? Giancarlo Stanton. Is he ever on the field? No, but when he does, he's smashing. Oh, who also has an MVP in that team? Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt also has an MVP. Like, Caballero knows he doesn't have to be the guy.
Right.
And I think in a Rays team, everybody has to pull their weight. Nobody should be looking up at one dude. I know we like to look up at Junior because he has a tremendous bleeping season this year. But I think everybody should agree that in most seasons, there isn't just one guy that the Rays offense is geared towards. Like, everybody has to do their bit. And so maybe that's a reason why, when you don't have that pressure, you can actually just play ball and have some fun. And also, like you said, winning, man. I know the Yankees had a bad stretch there of ball in the middle of the summer there, but ultimately not worse than what the Rays were doing, right? Because they're headed to the playoffs. So yeah, they had a real bad stretch there, but winning is contagious. And I think those are the two reasons why we might be seeing a lot of success from Caballero right now.
And he does seem like a guy that likes the spotlight a little bit more. So playing in front of 40,000 versus 8, 9, 10,000 could be a little bit of a difference maker there as well. And I feel like the Yankees anyway, now who knows, he might be, with Volpe going through what he's going through, Caballero could be getting a lot more reps at short, but they've kind of manipulated it where at least over a couple weeks, they'll say to Caballero, okay, for this week, you're playing right field, and then get comfortable, get settled there. Next week, we'll have you 5 or 6 games at shortstop. So they're hacking the Jose Caballero system, and maybe their coaching staff figured something out that really resonated with him as far as this is what you can do to cut down your strikeout rate and increase your walk rate, something that the Rays weren't able to tap in his time in a Tampa Bay uniform. But, ultimately, look, with Caballero on the roster, the Rays weren't going to the playoffs. Without him on the roster, they weren't going to the playoffs. So I understand, and I still am totally okay with the trade because we, at the time, still had expectations for Ha-Seong Kim. And if not Ha-Seong Kim, this is just an opportunity for Carson Williams to get as many reps as possible for 2026 because Jose Caballero is not the shortstop of the future. He is, in a perfect world, I think, a utility platoon player, maybe on a certain team, depending on what they're going through. He could be a quasi everyday player, 26-man. But when I look at Jose Caballero, I don't necessarily see a guy that, needs to play 150 games.
Look, Caballero might have been more enjoyable to watch overall, but the trade-off in production to Taylor Walls wasn't as big.
Yeah. I am with you there. Let us know in the comments what you think on that. In the meantime, the Rays, they must have an action plan for how they're going to manage the innings next season of their pitching staff.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. So let's not do that. And you can avoid that by using Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Even when you're on the go and you want to know what's going on, you can just look at the Monarch Money app and there it is. So do not let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using promo code LOCKEDONMLB. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, and you've got to go see your Rays, and you got to use Game Time. Why? Well, because it's actually fun to get tickets using Game Time. You know why? Because there's no surprise fees. That's my favorite part about Game Time. You don't just get stuck with all these fees at the end of the line that you didn't think that you would get, okay? It's the price you see. That's the price that you pay. So take advantage and download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your first listen. We appreciate it. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This final mailbag question comes from Jimmy, Florida. Jimmy says, the Rays in the offseason must reevaluate how they handle their pitching. The Rays are the creators of the 5-inning starter and 4-inning bullpen, but the last 2 seasons have proved that a bullpen asked to get 12 outs a night gets burned out really fast. Guys like Pete Fairbanks were noticeably down in August and September. Injuries to the starters only taxed the bullpen more. Do the Rays go to a 6-man rotation to save their starters' arms, or do they de-emphasize the slider that shreds elbows over time? More changeups, less sliders, 6-man rotation, less bullpen use.
Well, Jimmy Florida 337, thank you for that comment. Is it fair to say that Rays fans' biggest fetish is the 6-man rotation?
I think that's like the last vestige or the last frontier. We've done openers, we've done platoons, we've had pitchers manning first base. We've done pretty much everything out there, but the 6-man rotation seems to be the the final stage there that guys want. And I understand it to some extent, when you enter spring training and you have X number of names, but before long you're down to 5, or you're scrambling to get 5 reliable guys out there. So that also makes it tough. I mean, there's pros and cons to the 6-man rotation. But then again, and I know the Rays like to throw curveballs to their players and say, hey, we like you to do this. If you can just be amenable to this or that. But the guys that are starters are groomed to pitching every 5 days. And I feel like it's hard to get out of the habit of that.
It's very difficult to get away from that. It's just that elusive one that we think that it's going to happen each and every single year. And it's not. Honestly, Jimmy, we had the healthiest rotation I remember. I mean, up
this
to
year.
this year, to the All-Star break, literally every starter made their start, except for, I believe it was Joe Boyle against the Braves early April. This is off the top of the dome. I think they delayed Shane Boss for 1 day. And then they put Joe Boyle on a Sunday start, I want to say. Check me in the comments, people. That's it. You don't have that ever with the Rays. Somebody always goes down. And so, like, in 2025, you had the healthiest rotation. I do think they were trying to give length, because at that same time in that season, the Rays starters, because they were healthy, they had been pitching the most innings, their starters, in all of MLB.
Yeah.
So this was, if you wanted to try a 6-man rotation, this could have been it, right? They're healthy. You can space them out, garner some more rest for a guy coming back from big surgery like Rasmussen. Shane Boss had just come back. So you could have done that, but you didn't do it. And they're not going to do the 6-man rotation. I don't think so. And if you look at 2026, no more Littell. Yeah. So that's a rubber arm you don't have. You want to take care of Rasmussen, who you just extended him, by the way, and then he just gave you an all-star nomination. So you want to take care of your number one. Daz is a question mark because of his production. I mean, people are saying, hey, he could even get an Alex Colomé treatment and then just send him to the bullpen. Seymour and Boyle, that would be their first full year if they make the rotation.
Right.
It's just not very likely to see a 6-man rotation anytime soon.
So you're really the one guy that you can truly bank on to rack up innings is Ryan Pepiot. And we see what he's dealing with this year with the fatigue. I think it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, zero-sum game. Somebody's going to be taxed when you have at least 9 innings of baseball for 162 games plus spring training and hopefully playoffs. It's a tough gamble. I mean, I don't understand why, like, does Pete Fairbanks seem overworked or overutilized? He's at 56 innings right now. I mean, as far
he's
as
never done that before.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of his problem, is not being able to stay healthy for a full season.
Yeah.
And his hands getting cold when the weather changes to cooler temperatures. I mean, if we're looking at it, frankly, Edwin Uceta has a lot more innings as a reliever than Pete Fairbanks does. But I think that it does seem like, not saying that this would be the case for all 30 or 32 starts that a starter makes, there does seem to be a focal point on going beyond the 5 innings pitched. the 5 and dive role.
Seems like
and I think some of that is just the bullpen isn't as beefy as it's been in previous years, where we were talking about, hey, this is the Rays can scrap together a bullpen with the best of them. You've never heard of these guys. They were selling solar panels, and look at them. They're
remember when this bullpen broke down? It was late June and July.
Yeah,
bro, like in the middle of the season. So yeah, it just wasn't as effective, and so that's why it broke down. And imagine if you're just putting more on them, it's going to be worse. But I agree with you. I think there is kind of maybe a change in mentality. If they're healthy, let's stretch them out a little bit longer, because, and we've always said this, and you guys can go look at the tapes. We have said this. If you don't just give a longer leash to your rotation, that bullpen is going to get tired quicker. And by the time you need them, they're gone. We should learn about the Nick Anderson experiment. Don't front load so much work, even if it's in a concentrated time like it was then in October in the playoffs, where by the time the guy was in the World Series, his arm was toasty toast. Yes. Well, don't do that to the whole bullpen by putting so much work on them April, May, June. By July, they're gone.
Right. And, the Rays might just have to get creative with some phantom ILs, or send a guy to Durham for a little bit just to get some rest, or invest in a long reliever or two to kind of bridge that gap between the starters and the 1-inning bullpen guys. But it's something that we don't get paid enough to answer that or figure out. That is Erik Neander's job to handle that and navigate that. I mean, luckily or hopefully, in a perfect world, the Rays would be not having so many close games, so you wouldn't have to worry about bringing in a Pete Fairbanks or one of your high leverage relievers. You can be a little bit more cautious when it comes to that. Right. All right. Thank you all for listening and sending in the mailbag questions. We appreciate it. In the meantime, we hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you later.